Good morning, everybody. John Spielka here for GAI Insights. Got a full house. We have Tim, we have Paul, we have Luda, we have Ankaj, we have Adam. Adam did an amazing job last night at our Learning Lab. Today we've got some really interesting stuff. Everything from new news about people trying to eat Google from the inside, as well as Ethan Mollick talking about brain damage and how to avoid it when using AI tools, and a few interesting case studies in between. All right, Ankaj, if you start us off.
Sure, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from the Wall Street Journal and talks about the companies that are betting that they can profit from Google's search demise.
Yeah, here we have yet more ankle biters. What do you think here, Tim?
I think this is optional for the AI leader. This is, the Wall Street Journal finally writing an article on something that's been in the news for a long time relative to the pace at which this market's been evolving. They're talking about a bunch of startup companies potentially competing for Google space, to quote The Simpsons, duh, or dough or whatever. So to me, there's nothing new here. It's a bunch of interesting companies. Some of them might get famous and rich. Some of them might do nothing. It's a space that's been well understood since Perplexity really started the game a long time ago. And anybody, even, we talk about AI leaders. Sometimes we overestimate how knowledgeable they are. I don't think there's an AI leader who doesn't understand this for a while already.
Yeah, well, Tim, you remind me of my 6-year-old granddaughter a long time ago when Perplexity started this, like, what was it, 2.5 years ago? But whatever, yes. So optional from Tim, well known already. No new news here. What do you think, Luda?
Well, I was between optional and important. I think Tim is being over optimistic, thinking that everybody caught up with this. I'm not so sure. And if they know that is coming, they don't know what the remedy is and where to look. I really think that we should flag it as important.
All right. So Luda says, yeah, for the inner group, maybe for everybody. What do you think here? I was just about to ask Adam. Adam, did we lose you? Can't hear you. Let's see.
Am I back?
You're back. He's back.
Yeah,
What do you think here? Yeah.
I was also between optional and important. I can hear Amanda not being here, but her presence being that voice of reason about how much out in the actual wild, where people are just getting onto this stuff, they actually have the level of awareness that we do, and I think it's worth calling to attention, perhaps because it's Wall Street Journal as well, so it gets a little extra weight as being logo worthy, I guess, and credible as a result to whatever extent that is. But that in the journal they're talking about this, it's going to be a wake up call for any that that aren't already aware. And shame on them, Tim, to your point, right? They absolutely should by now. It's been 2.5 years really since Gen AI came out, and well over a year that we've been talking about this. So yeah, it's
well. The other thing is they didn't mention Rosemary Briscoe's To the Web, which is the obvious leader in this space.
Yeah. All righty. So
shoddy reporting.
So I was leaning towards important just to elevate it.
All righty, Paul. Important, optional. Where are we?
Yeah, I'm channeling my inner Tim on shareability, and I think this is one at least that alert the AI leaders to share because it's in Wall Street Journal, so important.
All right, Ankaj, you okay with important?
Yes, John. I think it's important for leaders who are just venturing into this space to understand what's going on in the search domain.
All right, important is next.
Okay, the next one that we have comes from Microsoft, and it's a case study about how Commonwealth Bank's Chat IT helps employees fix IT issues in seconds using Gen AI.
Yeah, from 17 minutes on average down to 2 for IT fixes. Hey, one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning, if you want to look at the articles as we go through this, go to GAIworld.com. GAI Insights. Sorry, GAIinsights.com/articles. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. All right, Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, so this is Commonwealth Bank Australia, CBA, and this is a great little piece. I wish they gave a little more detail in terms of how they actually accomplished the results they did. But this is a phenomenal use case. I'd say it's borderline essential, but an important piece of news. It showcases how you can use Copilot Studio, which often people think of as this M365, like the modern work Microsoft product, but the alternative approach to it, which is using it with Microsoft Azure and then the Power Platform to hook in all of these automations on the back end with natural language, which just offers incredible capability. It's a great use case, right? You chat with IT and they can go and fire off a password reset request or whatever it might be on the back end, all from that chatbot that's really borderline no code at this point, with some pretty common integrations into other systems. They have great numbers about the results, everything from NPS to hours saved. So it's a phenomenal use case in a really, really high profile industry with arguably the enterprise leader. So what's there not to like?
Essential?
Important or essential. I mean, a phenomenal use case, but not necessarily at the end of the day, it's also a fairly pedestrian use case, right? I mean, a chatbot for solving IT problems. Right?
And I'll take the other end of that, which is maybe important, because yes, they do cite some good improvement characteristics. They don't say how long or how they say it saved 2,500 hours already. So that's good. There's at least a couple of nice statistics, but there's zero detail here. And so, Adam, you understand it, which is great. And I learned a lot just listening to you just now, but there's nothing in here about how they did this. I'm not impressed by net promoter scores and things, except over long periods of time with consistency. It's good. It's better than a sharp poke in the eye, but it's early. So it doesn't say that much. And there's nothing here about any issues, how they did it. So I'm okay with important, but I like use cases, and this one is just not that well written, in my opinion.
All right, we're bouncing around the I category here. What do you think, Luda?
I'm totally unimportant, because in large companies, and I've been in one as a corporate VC, you cannot fix those IT problems yourself. You have to call the help desk. And as a result, you can lose half a day calling different people if the problem is more complex. So they're not going, right, this is not detail, but
excuse me, if someone can mute, it's just a lot of background noise.
yes, you're not going very deep in those IT use cases, right? But they are taking the most painful ones. Like, I lost my password, I'm on the road, I can't get in, could please help. So, and you can't reset it yourself. So it's these type of cases, they should be across the board in every large company. So that's the reason for important.
But not essential.
No, because Tim is right. This is not into too much detail of what they did, how they did it. It's just, here's the case, here's the results.
All right, Paul.
Yeah, let me make the case for essential and at least stir up the waters a little bit. Now, John and I had a call with the CIO of a major company yesterday who's waiting to do a lot of Gen AI investment after they get a big acquisition done. And we were talking about use cases, and this is one I agree, Luda, every single company has. This is right with contracts. This is a no-brainer. It's not customer-facing. It shows hard dollar and immediate sales. In fact, it gets a quick win for the AI leader and the team here. It shows everyone in the organization easy way to use it here. And, I think this is a use case that I think we've discussed because it is such a slam dunk and so pervasive.
And moreover, Paul, it's just, I remember these calls, right? You sit there for a couple of hours and the person on the other end actually is looking up in the database of how to solve my problem and fuddling with it, right? So he or she is not sure. They look and then they say, let me put you on hold. And what they're doing is going up the chain to verify that their assessment of what they should do is right, because they don't want to further degrade my computer. So it is very frustrating. So if we go essential, I'm totally support this, because this is the case that gets a lot of angst and gets on the employee side and gets a lot of downtime.
Yeah, I mean, and for those of you in the audience who don't know, Luna's also a deep computer scientist, so this isn't. Anyway, Ankash, I'm headed for Essential. What do you think here?
I think I agree with Paul, John. Basically, very simple use case, but when implemented successfully, creates a lot of value. So I think we need to highlight case studies like this.
All right, it's got a few things
Yeah.
against it in terms of what.
Just one thing I want to call out right there at the bottom of the page. It says this month Microsoft named Chat IT in its 50 AI innovators list.
Yes.
That says 50 AI innovators list, but when you go to it, it's actually it's basically 39 use cases across 8 industries in 12 countries of how people are driving ROI with Copilot and agents. So that link is actually a little treasure trove in itself.
Yep.
Right there. That link is a pretty great resource actually that I would have never found if I hadn't been curious about. It'll take just a second to load. It's a heavy page, but yeah.
There you go. All right.
And where was this one on their list? I didn't check. Did you check?
Where
this case study is on their list?
No, it just said that it made the top 50, but there as one of the use cases. So I imagine there are a bunch of good ones in here.
All righty.
Of course, it is Microsoft awarding Microsoft implementation a top
Absolutely.
50. So
and they're bigger than a lot of countries. They certainly make a lot more money than a lot of countries. So, all right, next.
Okay, the next one that we have for today comes from Anthropic, and it's a case study about how Dust helps enterprises create actionable AI agents with MCP and Claude.
All right, here we have Dust with the increasing naming insanity. What do you think, Luna?
Yeah, it's a totally optional article. It's what channeled Tim here. It's a puff piece. There's no real results, no real how you can do it. No, nothing. Just says we use Claude and we use the MCP protocol, and it will be great agents. Thank you. So triple optional for me.
All right, interesting. Yeah, Anthropic does some great research and some great, deep reasoning about their constitutional AI and a bunch of other stuff. And these case studies are just fluffy, not stuffy. All right, we're heading for optional faster. Any disagreement, Adam?
I was a double optional, but I could support triple optional.
Okay, all right.
yeah, absolutely.
Guys, optional, Paul.
Triple optional. Yeah.
All right, we're going optional next.
Okay, the next one is an interesting research paper which talks about AI research agents for machine learning, search, exploration, and generalization in MLE Bench.
Yeah, I remember when you used to teach decision analysis, this whole issue of like which models to use, what to do with the data, and so forth. This seems to be automating a whole bunch of it. What do you think, Tim?
I think this is interesting. I could be arm twisted into important, but it is a research paper. The reason I could be arm twisted into important is that it points out a couple of things. One is that the use of what they call operators is the limiting factor right now. So people tend to, the colorful phrase is rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. And to channel our dear friend Alan Kay, he had a great phrase, which I've never forgotten, which is problem finding is the really hard part. And most people are solving the wrong problem. So we have all these searches right now. They're doing search algorithms to say, okay, find me 50 solutions, and then I'll search through this one to find the best one. But it turns out that using Python or using any of the tools that they do to implement it is actually the bottleneck in getting better. And the search algorithms aren't making any difference. So they did some work to both create an environment to work in this stuff, which is maybe the most important thing they did, and then to optimize some of the operators and show a pretty substantial benefit just by making the operators better without doing anything to the search of better results itself. So this is it's in the weeds a lot, so I would say optional, but a good weekend read if you're into stuff that's into the weeds, and a pretty important reminder that we're still such early days, that there's a lot of algorithmic development and problem finding still going on. So here they found the problem was not the one they thought. It was another problem altogether that really is holding things up.
All right. Yeah, what do you think here, Paul?
I I agree with Tim. Tim, really well said about the problems finding here. But yeah, I agree with Tim. I do think it's on the research side, so I did have it as optional. But I thought Tim's statements were.
Ludo, what'd you think?
Yeah, optional for me, but I feel that this is a very intellectually stimulating article that discovered that if you take the best options, right, at the moment, and then apply what they call the operator, and the operator is a function to either create a new if the model cannot find a good one, or adjust, improve, or something else. So it's the separation of the operator and the search itself, and improving in every step is the critical component here. So it gets a lot of improvement. So this is an algorithmic step forward. I think the people who are training models will get better models as a result of that. But the leader has, I mean, I'm not sure what they would do with it today.
Now, let's see, not to go down a philosophical rat hole, but I'm of a mind that in our important category, some subset of our AI leaders are deeply technical, right? And for me, important, if we have a substantial article on a substantial topic that's going to be more important in the future, and I think this is definitely going to be more important in the future, that to me goes into important, because just as you said, Tim, if you have the propensity to, toward really wanting to understand more about the technical, and then, it's still optional. So for me, I would, and I know we're refined.
I wouldn't argue with important. That's what I said at the start. Yeah, I wouldn't argue with important. It's a good weekend read.
Okay. Ankash, where are you?
I'm on optional, John. I think it might be an interesting read, but from a usefulness perspective right now, I'm not sure.
And it's deeply technical, John. It goes into formulas and defines those operators.
Sure.
And so maybe Adam can give a read.
What do you think, Adam?
First, I have a question, a clarifying point, because it's talking about solving real-world machine learning problems. Is this a generative AI solution?
It doesn't matter.
No, I'm asking.
Yeah, it's broader than that. You're right. It's machine learning in general, not generative AI in particular.
But I can absolutely see how vital this would be as people start making these agentic systems. And more and more we talk about the importance of the integration between that deterministic and the probabilistic. And to your
well,
point,
I think they're targeting it at generative AI architectures.
Yeah, which is sort of a layer abstracted from the actual research itself, but what elevates the importance of it, I feel, in some ways. So I could support important. It's not even lower back pocket, but if it's sitting on the table and you want to relax in the sun on Sunday afternoon, it might be there for you.
There you go. We'll put this together with sunscreen. All right, retaining lotion. All right, we're headed for important, Paul. Important?
Yes.
All right. Important is next. Just so I keep an eye on time, we're doing pretty well, I guess. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, the next one comes from Together AI, and they have launched Deep SWE. So they have trained a fully open source state-of-the-art coding agent by scaling reinforced learning.
Yeah, and getting up to not top level marks, but up in the 40s on SWE. One thing I just want to highlight a theme I'm feeling here. Paul and I have been working with a new client that's building out maybe the world's largest data center shell, and so we've been looking at a lot of primary demand for intelligence. And actually, we're also working with an energy group on this topic. I just look at all these things we're reviewing, and whether it's this Deep SWE, with the agents we just talked about. My goodness, it just seems like there's going to be so much primary demand for tokens and inference and everything. It's just, anyway, I just wanted to kind of put a pin in that for a second. All right, on this one, Adam, what'd you think?
So I'll caveat what was said there, which is that it's a state-of-the-art coding agent. It's state-of-the-art coding agent for its size, Right. I mean, this is not competing with Claude Code and those
No.
things. This is
Right.
a 32 billion
That's
parameter.
important.
It is open source, but really it's incremental improvements. It's a research article about how through additional reinforcement learning, they've continued to push the envelope, which is what you would expect. I consider it an optional read. It's great. It's fully open source, open weight, state of the art for its size, using what we currently know is the best way to make these things the best one yet. So it's really incremental improvements in a crowded space.
All right. So interesting, optional, built on the 32B DeepSeek model, if I remember. The
Quen.
model.
thank you. All right. So Tim.
Yeah, I'm with Adam. It's interesting. It's a marginal improvement. It's nice that it's completely open source, but incremental. Yep.
Luda?
Everyday miracle.
Total optional. It's for coders who want to take it and actually build stuff on top of it. And it's very deeply technical. So it's not really for AI leaders per se. Yeah.
All right. Ankaj, Paul, headed for optional.
Agree.
Optional.
All right. What's the purpose? Interesting. Ashish asks, what's the purpose of a small coding model unless you're just vetting the improvement approach?
Well, it's a lot cheaper to run. You can run it on local devices instead of having to have a cloud. There's a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, again, we've seen this. That right now we're still so early. Everybody's going in every direction. The big models are saying scale is everything, and they're still the best at most things. So they got a pretty solid argument. And the smaller models are saying, hey, we can do 80-20 or maybe even 90-10, and that's going to be so much more cost efficient. And on-prem, as Paul's been saying, just lots of advantages. We don't know the answer, but they're all going out there doing different things.
Well, Ashish, I think what they are going is performance and cost, right? If you go back to the 2x2 graph at the top, they are beating DeepSeek R1, right? So in performance, and the cost is quite low. So if you can get that type of performance at a lower cost, that's the optimization.
See, I'd actually say it's primarily what he's alluding to in his first question, which is vetting the improvement approach. 32 billion is a great size for research. If you want to understand about reinforcement learning and how different techniques can improve reinforcement learning, this is a great place to be performing those benchmarks. You can have relatively cheap hardware you're running locally that can still do that inference and training. So I think it's just the nature of sort of what's the best current level to as a proving ground for research.
Yeah, but Ashish is coming
I mean,
back.
this will get applied to Grok and Claude and those things in the next iteration. That's what we see, and then they will be even better, but at the 400 billion parameter level.
Yeah, but I agree with Ashish. He's coming back at us saying DeepSeek is not a coding model, and if you're looking for a good solution, right, you should.
As he says, for coding, you absolutely want the best, and that's why I'm saying
right.
This type of research is really. It's not that they're trying to be the best at 32 billion. They're trying to prove out techniques on how to use reinforcement learning to make the best coding model.
Correct. At cheap. So yeah, optional.
All right. As we continue to beat an optional to death, it's optional. All right. Next.
That's our core competency, John. Overanalyze the optional.
Unique selling position.
All right. We get Ethan Malik is pulling up the rear here against brain damage. Go ahead, Ankaj.
Yes, so the last one from Ethan Malik, where he criticizes the MIT Media Lab paper, Your Brain on ChatGPT, and tell us why it's not causing, ChatGPT is not causing brain damage, but how it can affect our thinking.
Yeah, I think he actually says that he criticizes the interpretation, the overgeneralization of the paper. He thinks the paper's pretty solid, I think. And then this UNESCO paper looks very interesting. That's in here about different learning methods and so forth. What do you think, Luda?
I gave this essential. I think every leader should read it. It is absolutely critical to think about how do you use AI? How does your team use AI? What's the summaries that the summary agents that you're sending to meetings, and why is this meeting in existence to begin with if you are just sending a bot? So he says that it requires discipline, like he does the thinking and rethinking of his writing. That's before he turns to the bots. And I actually agree with him very adamantly. So it's a critical piece for education. I think it's a critical piece for leaders of how their teams are using bots. And so it was essential.
All right. It's interesting. When you think about all the improvement in the Industrial Revolution, you think about evolution itself. It's fundamentally a learning paradigm, and I would argue that exploring what the interaction is between humans and machines in this new learning paradigm, because I think we're in a new one, is going to be. I think this is the core force underneath the power of AI. Myself is that interaction, but yeah, what do you think here, Adam? You had it as an optional in the pregame, important in the pregame.
Yeah, listening to Luda, I think I have been swayed. I think back to in the movie The Matrix, actually. There's the point where Neo basically plugs in, right? And then he says, I know Kung Fu. Right. And to think about what he's alluding to here, and that ability to be able to basically understand how to do anything, and what the scale at which we're going to be able to achieve new competencies is, it's pretty profound, and it's worth, as Luda said, taking the time to understand what Ethan's getting across here.
It's a thinking piece. It's understanding what is it for you, because our bots currently are all wired to give us answers rather than to help us learn how to get those answers or think about the answers. So it's
Tim was alluding to before about figuring out the best problem to solve.
Exactly. And getting help in solving it or thinking about the problem. It's an interesting angle. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, without going on too long a rant, I won't argue. But I think because, Alan and the other people I work with for decades are some of the best educational theorists of the last 100 years. And so they know a lot about learning. And the one thing that people are missing, there's a great quote, go back 100 years, John Philip Sousa, who wrote all the marches and everything in the early 1900s, when he heard the first record player said people aren't going to learn how to sing anymore. And you know what? He was right. We don't know how to sing anymore. And the question is that good or bad? And that's the different problem to solve, okay, that Ethan doesn't really address directly, is we've lost basic music training that everybody used to have, because the only way to make music was to make it yourself. And I think that's a tremendous loss to society, and we just don't even notice it. And so I agree with most of what he says, so I won't argue with it. It's a good article. He writes well, but the fundamental issue of should a Good Will Hunting's another one that, if you haven't seen the movie, it's one of the best movies of all time, I think. And Robin Williams gives Matt Damon this long lecture about, well, you've read everything about every painting, you know everything about everything, but you've never been to the Louvre. You've never seen the Mona Lisa, and it's not the same to read about it in a book. And so I think to a certain extent, there is real danger here that we aren't paying attention to. And the only reason I'm on a little bit of a rant is it's not that different than the dangers and the problems we're facing for the last 50, 60, 100 years, which is we've destroyed the educational process to a great extent. And so it's already bad, and we're just, we could make it a lot worse because this is a big amplifier of the ability to make it worse. So it's a dangerous setup, but I won't argue that. I'll stop. I'm just ranting a little bit.
No, but it's only, no, Tim, you actually added to the argument. It's a danger. He recognizes the danger. He doesn't talk much about it, but he is talking about how to actually recognizing this danger, wire your processes and your environment for not really going down the wrong path.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Hey,
And that part's good, but he's not addressing the real problem is what does it mean to educate somebody and what does it mean to learn and what are the most effective mechanisms for learning? And we know a lot about that and they're completely ignored.
John, I know we're at times.
And
I want to add, though, I think the key thing, this is important discussions happening everywhere. The key thing I think everyone's missing, though, is this all assumes that you're using the AI as a thinker and not a critiquer or not a coach. And I think that the power there is when you do the work and ask it to critique it or ask it to make it better, or ask me to coach that answer using Socratic method or something rather than 100% outsourced thinking. But
yeah, there's real power. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, to what Tim's saying, there's okay. We're at time. Hope Ankash, hope you don't mind. I'm gonna go for essential in this one. It's a worthwhile read, hugely important topic. I have tons of opinions on it, but not at the moment. All right, Ankash, if you get us the top board, and then any announcements? Adam, Paul, Luda, Tim.
no, a lot of excitement continues on our conference in 2.5 months, GAI World, September 29th and 30th in Boston. Here we have just a fantastic lineup. Companies are buying tables, so if you're able to join us, please do. GAIworld.com.
All righty. See you all tomorrow. Have a great AI day.